Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Mike Lloyd, who is a change maker helping small businesses with organizational health and leadership development. Mike, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Hey, so I like to always get a little bit of background on my guest and get to know them. And I know that you were a professional photographer. So what in the world led you to move from professional photography into being a corporate business consultant? What's that story?
Yeah, so I guess if there's anything that I've learned from starting businesses, when you find an unmet need that you can capitalize on, that's an opportunity. So I was doing commercial photography, and I'm here in Silicon Valley, but I get flown all over the country to photograph for small businesses, doing marketing materials, collateral, any kind of advertising work, things like that. And because I want to make sure you're going to get, money back from this investment of working with me, I want to make sure I could deliver the best photos for your cause. So, what is your brand voice? Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to say? What medium will these images be used in? Is there a certain style, a look, a demographic you're targeting? Let's get really specific so that these photos are effective. And I found that a lot of the companies I worked with didn't have those things nailed down yet, because I went after influencers first as a marketing strategy, and then their followers were hiring me because I photographed the influencer. And it was great. They were jumping on board with this particular tactic without having the entire strategy in place.
Almost like putting the cart before the horse.
Exactly. So these photos were never going to help them because they didn't know, they didn't have this other foundation in place first. There was no consistent brand voice. It would have just been chaos. Yeah. So I started consulting with those clients before we do the photo shoot. And then they'd bring me in to consult and build marketing platforms or marketing programs. And, one company had me sort of start a marketing department in their office and get their social media presence up. And I did so much work for them, and it led, one thing led to another. And then I found myself doing less and less actual shooting and more consulting for companies. And I was really, really loving it because I was empowering all these people to help, realize their vision. Whereas I could do that with photos, more or less literally. It was a lot more scalable.
Yeah.
With the consulting side. And so I made a choice to close up, my photography business of 10 years, which was not easy. But I just had to keep in mind, I didn't fail anything. This isn't a loss. This is a change in direction because I am needed elsewhere. Yeah. And it felt really, really good.
Yeah.
So that's how I got there, and I've just been running with it since.
Well, and probably, do you find yourself still using photography with your clients? It's just not a business pillar in your business, but maybe when you're working with a client, you go, "Hey, let's do this shoot," and now you can speak from your area of expertise there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can do that, or with video, or any kind of visual media. But one of the skills that I really took from doing this sort of photography and visual storytelling is being able to really help them dial in their message and deliver it as efficiently and as effectively as possible, whether it's photos or a flyer or a PowerPoint presentation, whatever it may be. And so I get to take that same process and those same skills and help these executives, VPs, directors really, really get their message, get their team on board with something. And, oh man, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah. What you just described there reminds me of a marketing principle called IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications. I teach marketing for several universities, and this is a really, really big thing because it's all about keeping that brand messaging on point across all of your channels, and then you layer in the look and feel of the brand. Well, it's kind of like if you go and you look at one of these influencers that you're talking about, and you look at their social media across all the channels, and one looks really great, and one looks really dumpy, and one looks really okay. Well, people are going to feel that. It's like this disconnect inside of them going, so can't put my finger on it, or maybe they can. But talk a little bit about that consistency of branding as well as the brand message, because that underlying message of what we do as a brand, as a company, as an entrepreneur, for our customers, that needs to be consistent, because I think that our audience is so busy these days. We might think we're telling them what our core brand message is, but we're not really keeping it consistent enough for them to understand and get it. We're off talking about the next thing and the next thing. So speak a bit about that brand messaging and the consistency. I think that's a really important piece.
Totally. So when I help business owners or leaders work on their brand, it's not a color scheme. It's not their logo.
Yeah.
It's not whatever catchphrase they spend way too much money coming up with that never gets printed on anything. I like to phrase it in terms of being a personality for your business. Like every person has an identity and a personality. And so we're going to create that for the business. And, maybe your clothing, your haircut is a representation of your personality. And so any of the visual materials or the verbiage we produce for the company is how your company expresses itself. And if you come across as schizophrenic, then that makes people uncomfortable and they don't want to engage. And they're not going to sit around and figure out why it's awkward. They're just going to feel that it's awkward, and that dissonance will push people away every single time.
Yes.
So one of the last, sort of messages that was like really fun for me to deliver to somebody who was not on board with this rebrand rollout inside of their company that I was helping with. They didn't think that they needed to update all of this old material, despite their company, boasting about being innovative and cutting edge and an industry leader. But their marketing materials were from like 1990. And this is like the last 2 years I was working with them. And their message didn't reflect the delivery. And they even hired a consultant to go poll their customers, and they got the same unprompted feedback from them. So I took a picture of an Applebee's restaurant that's near my house, and they just put up this brand new sign, like a lighted sign with their logo out in front. But they didn't take the old sign down that's like 6 feet away from it. So you have a brand new, polished, like refreshed logo sign, and then you have this old, rundown, beat-up looking one that doesn't light up anymore.
Yeah.
Right next to it. And so then I took a picture of an Apple store, and I put the Apple store picture down. It's like, when you see an Apple product, you don't need to see the logo. Every commercial, every store, every product, everything Apple does, it's Apple before they ever tell you or before you see that Macintosh logo. Or you can choose to be Applebee's and send two completely different messages at the same time and push people away. And it's like, it was a no-brainer at that point. They're like, cool, just make it happen. So I hope that answered your question.
It totally did. And you said something really, I think, profound. And you either can claim it and go, yep, that's what I meant, or you can go, ooh, I just said that off the top of my head and I need to keep saying that. But the message didn't reflect the delivery. And I think that is a drop the mic moment. But I also love when I can think of things like that and then flip it around. And I would say that you would also agree with the opposite. The delivery didn't reflect the message. So when you get your brand you're working with to dial in their message, you can't then have it on those old outdated delivery marketing models like the old sign or the old website or the old flyer. Nobody does flyers anymore. So talk a little bit about how these two things correlate. The message didn't reflect the delivery, so we've got this spectacular delivery of this message, but the message fell flat. And then we tweaked the message, but we delivered it with these lackluster marketing models. I think that's a really big thing that we need to think about.
Totally. And there is a different context I want to pivot to here, because this isn't just about marketing materials. So one of the things I love helping departments do, I got invited to come lead a couple offsites for this new department that was growing in another company. And they were having trouble with team members not overstepping boundaries and like jumping into each other's tasks, and it was creating a lot of resentment and tension within the department. It was like 12 people, so it was easy for things to get heated in their office space. So I went in to lead this offsite, and I asked everybody to go around the table and say, when your friends or family ask, what does your department do? How do you describe it? And everybody had such a different answer, because they were looking at it from their own point of view, like their own input perspective. So we sat down and hashed out a mission statement for the team. And it, at first everyone was giving me a bunch of technical jargon. I'm like, that's cool, but your grandma needs to understand this. Yes. Or if you show this to any stranger, they need to know. And it needs to be grandiose. It needs to be like, what is the purpose? Like, why are you even here? Are you just to collect a paycheck, or are you going to make a difference in the world? And once they started looking at things like that, then the pieces started coming together. And then we went around the room, and rather than go over everyone's job description, I had each person stand up, and then we went around the table, and everybody said what they needed from that person. Like, what does support look like from that person? So now they had a mission to go and unite behind, and they saw how their efforts impact everyone else on the team. And like, people were hugging at the end and like thanking me, and they were like rolling their eyes when they first walked in the door. And it was a really cool transformation to see in just a few hours. Whereas some companies will, the executive team will sit down and come up with a mission statement, vision, values, all of that stuff. And it's like, we pride ourselves on quality and integrity and customer service. It's like, well, everybody does. Like, that's not, those aren't effective core values. Your mission to make the world a better place is not specific enough.
Your 10 competitors we just interviewed said the exact same words. So what sets you apart?
Yeah, exactly. And, as far as the message matching the delivery, like, cool, you can come up with those things and put them on a mural on the wall next to the office. But if you're not actually making decisions based on those values, and if you're not leading the company based on that mission, and if you're not intentionally engineering a culture within your organization that reflects those values, I'm like getting goosebumps right now. This is the stuff that gets me fired up. Then that delivery is not matching your message. You can tell people these things all you want, but if you're not living them as a leadership team, as a department head, or as an employee, it makes no difference. Then they're just worthless. And what happens is when a management team rolls out, a new mission, vision, values initiative, and then nothing happens, or even worse, like they make some decision that totally goes against, they decide to not recall a defective product. Like, well, what about integrity? I thought that was one of the core values. And it's like, yeah, but it'll cost a lot. Like, maybe in the short term, but like, look when, was it Johnson & Johnson had to recall all those aspirin bottles in Tylenol, right, in Chicago because of the poisoning. Like, they went against CDC recommendations and they pulled every bottle in the country and had people swap them out. And their stock price fell initially, but then they ended up with a 40% growth over the next year because that was in their because they looked at it and they're like, we're not a distributor of painkillers. We are in the business of taking care of people and what is like pushing or allowing them to have a happier, healthier life.
Yeah.
And risking more poisonings is not aligned with that mission. And that guided it. That's the purpose of those things, is to get people to rally and to help guide your decisions. So when you say those things and then you make decisions that counter it, or then just blow them off, your teams lose faith in you. They don't trust the initiatives you'll push because they're just going to start seeing things as hot air. And why listen to or follow any of the new directives if they're just going to blow over like that one? So it can actually backfire on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the old, when I was in corporate America 10 plus years ago, you would have your boss come back from a conference and here's all these things we're going to do. And we would leave the meeting and go, let's just give it 2 weeks and then it'll blow over, and it blew over, done. And you can't let that happen, because if you spend the time to create this brand messaging, mission, vision, core beliefs, that should be your brand DNA in effect. And if it's not, then what was it?
Right. Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit into an entrepreneur that wants to dial in their brand message, and branding is not, is the logo and the graphics and all that, but the brand message, like you're talking about, when they have finally got that dialed in, what are some steps that you would recommend to get that out in repurposing some content across different channels so that their target audience really sees that and can resonate with that updated brand message platform?
Totally. So one of the big things I hear from entrepreneurs a lot, because I'm like my local chamber of commerce and I go to meetups and business events and whatnot, and I always talk to people, and I love content marketing. Like Joe Pulizzi is my hero. And when we start talking about this stuff, they're like, yeah, but I don't know what kind of content to create. I'm like, then you don't know who you are and who you serve. Yeah. Because if you know those things, you're going to have so much content to create. Your new problem is going to be, how do I create this massive amount of, endless content? And so some examples. Let's say you want to position your business as, a veterans supportive business. Like you're a plumbing company and you support veterans. Like, maybe you're a veteran yourself and you only hire veterans. Well, that's cool. So how can you do, some sort of, providing lunch event for the VA, or your local, what are they called? Like Foreign Legion or American Legion station, So how do you get involved in the community to support that cause? Because that's all marketing. Anytime that you can put yourself and your brand in front of new eyeballs, that's marketing. And if that's your, part of your mission is to support veterans, then doing events to support veterans, writing content about other organizations that support veterans, which is cool because you can start a podcast about it, or you can write blog posts about it, whatever medium you're comfortable with and where your audience is, also important to remember. And if you're not good at those things, outsource it. Really easy to do. And then when they share that blog post or that podcast episode, whatever it may be, you're putting yourself in front of their audience as well. And so there's a lot of really, really cool ways to scale your message that is supporting your mission. Now, maybe you're into, one of my good friends that she used to do all the hair and makeup for my clients, has her own, hair salon, and they only use products that are not tested on animals. So that was one of those conversations we had when they first got started. They didn't know how to separate themselves from other salons. I mean, there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley that cut hair and do makeup and whatnot. And I just started talking like, well, what are you passionate about? Like, if you didn't do this, what would you do? And like that came up. And like, cool, well, that's your content tilt, another Content Marketing Institute term. Let's focus on that. So you can write blog posts, which can be split up into every different kind of social media post and live video or podcast episode or like literally anything about the different products. Like, why do you use this brand? Why do you not use these other brands? What are some things that people should look out for? Is there like secret wording in the ingredients that really mean it's tested on animals, but they don't say it? What are ways that you can educate people who are interested in that thing, and then they're going to come to you?
Yeah.
So when you know who you are and you have that brand voice, it's just an endless supply of content and marketing materials that you can create.
And I would say in that example, and I'm sure we can think of hundreds more, get outside of your frame of reference. And, the old saying, can't see the forest for the trees because you're too close to it. Well, figure out the things that you know in your business that you just know, but that you're really, really good at, but your prospects and your target audience think that it's like the best thing since sliced bread. Like, oh my word, are you serious that you don't test on animals? I hear that, but I never knew it was because of this, and I never knew it would cause that, and I never knew it was, but people just hear these little soundbite zingers, and you just do your business that way because that's like the thing that you do, but you never take the time to really unpeel that onion so that people go, wow, that's a layer I never thought of. And I think that is how you then go deeper with that content education.
Totally. I think that has to do with imposter syndrome. I know that's stuff that I've dealt with before. It's like, well, if I know it, then it's easy enough for everybody else to know it.
Yeah.
But then I look at how many books I've read, how many mentors and coaches I've had, all my experience and everything. Well, okay, obviously I know this stuff because of all those things, but because we learn it, such a slow pace over time, it's easy to overlook that accumulation of knowledge and experience, and your audience doesn't have that. So things that we think are boring and mundane, just like you said, could just like blow somebody's mind. And then they throw handfuls of money at you.
Yep, exactly. And then you stick with that and stick with it and teach it and teach and teach it in a variety of different ways, but the same core message so that you're known for that thing, kind of like you already exemplified that. You associated content marketing with Joe Polizzi.
Yeah.
I'm sure he talks about other things, but he has done a good job with the Content Marketing Institute to be known as that thing. Now, there's a lot of bullet points up underneath that of course you need to, but that's what we need to do with that brand messaging, is to be known for that thing.
Yep. And it's terrifying, right, to think about, I'm only going to be known for one thing, but I can do so many other things.
Yeah.
But then you're like the Fresh Choice or the Golden Corral, depends on where our listeners are coming from. The buffet store, or the buffet restaurant instead of a steakhouse. It's like, if I want a really good steak, I'm not going to go to the buffet. I'm going to go to a Morton's or a Ruth's Chris, or I'm just going to barbecue with my friends in a bourbon in the backyard. But you got to be the expert in the one thing, and then there's more than enough business to come along with that.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I have a feeling we could probably go on for about 4.5 more days. So let's wrap up with what's the best way that someone listening can reach out, connect with you, and learn how you may be able to help them with their dialing in their brand messaging.
I always go out for tacos after every client engagement, whether it's an offsite or my old photo shoots or anything. So if you shine a light in the sky that's the shape of a taco, kind of like the bat signal, I will come running. The best way to get a hold of me, or Mike at MikeLloydCoaching.com, or if you hit out my website, MikeLloydCoaching.com, you can apply to work with me there. My phone number should be on there. That is the best way to get a hold of me. And I actually like to offer real strategy sessions. I know some folks are like, call in for a strategy session, and then it's just a sales pitch.
Sales pitch, right,
It is. And there's like, well, there was no actual discussion of strategy or problems or like anything in there that could have been an email. I don't want to give that talk, and you don't want to get that talk. So what I like to do is actually have a strategy session where we can jump on the phone for like a half hour, and I'm really good at connecting with people and figuring out like what are the real root of the problems based on the symptoms you give me. And let's talk about one of the issues in your business or in your department or whatever. And I'll give you some suggestions on ways to work on that, whether or not you decide to work with me. Just happy to help.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. It was really great getting to know you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.